Welcome back to the podcast, my friends. Today I have a fun guest with me. Okay, her name is Kylee Chandler, and I was introduced to Kylee by one of the girls who works with me. But a little bit else to me, I'd actually worked with Kylee back when I was on Amy Porterfield's podcast. And so Kylee is a podcast genius. She's the host of her own podcast called Podcast Growth Tools. She has spent nearly a decade helping podcasters grow their audiences and their revenue, and she worked with Amy Porterfield. She's worked with Kathy Heller, both huge podcasters, and she's known for really helping people who have a podcast grow those podcasts like up to 234%. She's generated 30,000 plus leads on podcast centric quizzes. She's helped increase podcast plays by 21%, adding 2,000 plus new subscribers in 3 months. Like, she knows her way around podcasting. And what I love is that Kylee really believes that podcast should be a business asset, not just like more content. So this is, I think, what you're going to think is a really fascinating conversation. If you've ever wondered, should I have a podcast? Kylee gives you some thoughts on that here. If you've started a podcast and maybe you fizzled out, like, first of all, no shame, but she gives you some thoughts on how you can kind of get that back up and running. And if you already have a podcast, but you really would like to have more subscribers, wouldn't we all? She gives you some phenomenal tips too. Now, I do want to say this because I always record the bio after the episode. Make sure you listen to the last 2 minutes of this podcast episode, because she gave me a tip for my own podcast that literally was worth the entire, cost of time and everything else of having her on the show. So you're going to enjoy this episode without any further delay. Here is Kylee. Kylee, hello.
Hi, Jennifer. I am so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you. I just was on your podcast. When did that actually go live?
Did it go live last week, maybe?
Was it last week?
I think so. Yes. Yes. Perfect timing.
I literally need to make myself a note and go look because I was on Kylie's podcast. I'm like, that went so well. We need to have her on my podcast. So we're talking about all things podcasting today. Thanks for being here. Excited to have you. So will you tell everybody, I mean, I know at this point they've heard me read your bio, but will you kind of give us a little bit of your bio? Is it just me, or do you hate official bios? I hate that.
I mean, you could have them, right?
Well, when they read my bio and we're in the middle of a podcast, I'm like, I don't know where to look, because they're talking about me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do to make it look casual. And because you're supposed to talk about your highlight reel, and that's just so awkward for me. And I think part of that's just how I'm wired as an introvert and things. I don't know. But so anyway, I hate when people read my bios. So anyhow, give me just summarize your bio, if you would.
Oh, for sure. So I had the opportunity to work with Amy Porterfield for about 5 years. I ran her podcast. We had massive success, so much fun, so many lessons learned, and kind of came to a point where it was time to grow and expand. And so I stepped into a role with Kathy Heller, where I was her chief growth officer. I had some really amazing success there as well.
Let's pause right there. That is a cool title.
Yeah.
Say that again. Chief Growth Officer?
Yes.
CGM. Yep. I love that, actually. That's amazing. Okay. Fabulous.
You might need to hire one for move somebody.
I know, right?
But
and
yeah,
so
really
talking about growth for Kathy, it was mostly via her podcast as well.
No, not necessarily. When I was with Kathy, I actually oversaw her launches, oversaw the team, oversaw the revenue, her book launch, all of that good stuff. So got a chance to dabble and support her in tons of stuff, which was just divine in every way. And when I was with Amy, we had we grew her podcast by 234%. We created this really beautiful podcast center quiz that brought in over 15,000 subscribers. We did this awesome re-engagement campaign that supported the podcast. We had 60,000 people re-engaged from the cold email list onto her active list, all these really exciting, fun things. But the core of it all was really the podcast. And so I had a little girl 2 years ago, and I kind of got to a point where it was maybe a lot of female entrepreneurs do, that it's I think I just want to be my own boss. I want to create my own schedule. I want flexibility. And so I started putting the pieces together of what I had done in the last 6 years, the successes I, was able to support and grow with, and put them into kind of a strategy that I could start using with clients. And so that leads me to where I am today. I now have my own business where I support female entrepreneurs who are a little bit more established, grow not only their podcast, but really use it as the cornerstone of their marketing and get people on their email list and then to their offers. And then I have a podcast as well, which you were
Yes,
on, called Podcast Growth Tools.
I love that. And remind us of the names for anybody that wants to know of your podcast.
It's Podcast Growth Tools.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess because I know that you have helped many big names like grow in a lot of different ways, but what is it that you love so much about the podcasting piece? Is it that it's just
Shoot, it paused, Jennifer.
do what?
Sorry, it paused there. What was the end of that
I'm
question?
so sorry. That's weird. Okay. But I was asking why I know you've helped people grow their audiences, grow their list, grow a lot of things in different ways. So, but you really like the podcast angle. And so what is it about podcasting that you love so much? I'm just really curious.
This question is so fun. There is something so intimate casting, like we get to go on errands and we get to be with people in their earbuds when they're on a walk, when they're doing errands, and it's just like this really, it feels like an intimate way to connect. I mean, we put out a 31-hour long episode, and a lot of people do share some personal details, or we get to teach, or we get to do things we're passionate with and share it with people who are like-minded. And so I think it's just a beautiful platform. It also, like we grew up where we were listening to the radio and, we didn't get to have a curated playlist in our pocket. And so for me, it's just like audio is such a strong platform to use to get your voice out, to make people happy, to teach them, to support them, to make them feel less alone. And so it's just kind of that feels so passionate for me. And also, it's a great way to nurture people into your world and to your offers so that you can support them further.
Yeah. Okay. So I have lots of things that I want to like ask you about that. And because I've had my podcast for 7 years, which feels like, I don't know, 49 years and dog years, right? So like, if I'm doing the
There
math,
you go. I love that. I
like
love
a
the math.
long time. And there's been times we've gone down to one episode a week and then we bounced back up 2 episodes a week. And but I love having a podcast because I really like I kind of feel like it's like Jennifer Unplugged a little bit on my podcast. And if that makes sense, I'm able to talk more about what I want to and add some humor in. Easton always makes sure that on the YouTube version, there's always like funny outtakes. At least I think that I'm funny, Kylie. Maybe I'm not. But
You
so
are funny.
well, thank you. Thank you for that. But I'd love to just ask you like some thoughts because people will ask me if they need to have a podcast for their business.
Mm.
And so when people ask you that, do you have any like yes, if you fit this criteria, or what do you tell people when they say, Kylie, should I have a podcast?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that anyone's asked me that, but I have thought it
No
before.
way.
Well, not on a podcast interview, at least.
Okay.
So it depends, right? There are criteria. First of all, you have to understand that podcasting is a big undertaking. And even if you do enjoy it, you still have to show up. You
A
still have
commitment.
the song and game, like 49 years and dog years, 2 episodes a week. We're not just talking about 7 years straight. We're talking about sometimes multiple episodes. So you have to really believe in it. You have to have a passion for it and you have to create time and space to pour into it because it can very quickly become a chore and the episodes just go downhill from there, you know?
Yeah.
So it really depends on that. I think, also your audience, like if your audience only likes to be on Instagram, but they're not really audio listeners,
Yeah.
it's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve your podcast well. I think that there might be, especially with like these entrepreneurial podcasts, I feel like, I'm just going to say this, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's actually true, that the generation of especially women between maybe like 30 and like mid 40s to 50s are really loving the podcast platform where maybe some of the younger generation doesn't align with it quite as much to learn. Like they want quick and fast.
Yeah.
And so that's something to be thinking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And so I don't know
And
those.
you know what I think one of those things is? That was terrible English. You know what I think one of those things is? And I
I'm
spelled
following.
things. But like for me to sit down and read, like, let's say a book on business or something,
Mhm.
it's 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, and it's chopped up time. And, I can listen to it on Audible, but then it'll say, this is 8 hours or 11 hours. But like a podcast, you can just get some nuggets. And so that's one of the reasons like I prefer to listen to like a business podcast over like reading a business book. Does that make sense?
Well, it totally does. And on top of that, it can be, I mean, we can micro teach on episodes, right? It can be like, I specifically need to figure out how to create a re-engagement campaign because my email list is turning cold. Oh,
Yeah.
look at this podcast episode specifically about that versus sometimes with a full book, it can be
Yeah.
like all of these strategies and it's like you're bookmarking and you're earmarking and you're
Yes.
reminding yourself to come back.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you another question that maybe you've never been asked before. Who's got a couple of podcasts that are like your favorite to listen to? I'll tell you a couple of my favorites if you tell me a couple of yours.
Okay, you go first.
Let me go first. Okay. So, this I'm always like hesitant because I'm like, somebody's gonna say something. They're gonna have some opinions, Kylie, about something.
Okay.
Okay. Honestly though, right now, I will tell you that my favorite podcast, and I actually prefer to watch it on YouTube, is
Mm,
with Carl and Laura Lentz. It's my favorite. And it's
okay.
Lights Out with Carl Lentz. And so there might be people who have big thoughts on him. That's okay. You can keep your big thoughts. No need to send me a DM. But basically, they're just talking about marriage, what they learned through the almost destruction of their marriage, faith, how that plays into it. And they've got kids that are really close in age to my kids. So that's probably my favorite. I also love Tim Ross. Are you familiar with Tim Ross?
And
Okay, so
yeah.
he used to be a pastor, and so there's probably some people who are going to have really big thoughts about that one as well. And that's okay. You can have your big thoughts. Um, Bill Johnson. I love his. So mine are like less business
Yeah.
and probably more faith and things.
Mhm.
And let me see, who else do I have that I love? Let me see what I've watched recently. Give me just one second. But then, are you thinking about some of yours?
I got mine. Yep.
Okay. I was just listening to Lecrae interviewing John Bevere, which was really, really good. And
Oh.
like the combination I never saw coming in 2025. I also listened to Stephen Furtick from Elevation quite a bit on podcasts. So
Mm.
for some reason, I just really kind of got off of listening to business podcasts because I think we can almost reach a point of just information overload.
Yeah.
And I got to where I was listening to so many different recommendations and so many different ways of doing
Yeah.
things that I was losing my ability to tune into the Lord and what I need to be doing for my business for me, if that makes sense. So I just kind of tapped out on all business things in terms of podcasts for a while. So, okay, you go. Some of your favorites.
Okay, I very much get that, and I'll share mine. But one thing I will say is, okay, I interviewed, like, I come from, like, I was writing Amy Porterfield scripts step by,
Mhm.
and we were, how step by step by step can
Did
we
you
be?
write the questions she asked me? You
Probably.
probably
Oh
did
yeah,
because
for
I
sure. Yeah.
found
I
the
remember
book is like,
sitting in Sedona with your paper book and
yeah.
my husband and I were in Sedona at that time and I was sitting in Sedona at a little cafe reading your book, preparing for the
Aw,
interview. I just
thank
remember it
you.
so vividly.
Oh, thank you for that. First of all, I love Sedona. Thank
I
you
know.
for reading the book. But yeah, Amy's so organized and you were so organized. I knew exactly what I would be asked. And
Mhm.
there's a lot to be said for that. There's also the fun of going off script, which is kind of
Mhm.
my, go-to.
I
But
love it.
okay,
Oh, we're having fun.
I'll let you
So
get by without answering me your favorite.
well, and I'm going off on a little tangent, but it'll tie back in is so when I started my podcast actually in January, the early episodes, I mean, they're very like step by step by step, which I still have, but honestly, after sitting down and interviewing you and Kathy Heller, and both of you just like talked so much about being vulnerable and showing up on your podcast with a little bit more like personality, I kind of started dipping my toes into that and playing around because just that, I want my listeners to
Yeah.
hear more of me and to get to know more of me than
Yes.
just, oh, this is another podcast growth business podcast that I have to
Yeah.
be in the right mindset with. So thank you for that. But
Yeah,
so
you're
I'll say
welcome.
that.
Well, and I have a thought on that, and then I still want to get your favorites. But I feel like if somebody says to me, like, Jennifer, I really like your content, I'm like, hey, thanks. If they say to me, Jennifer, I literally hear your voice sometimes in my ear telling me what to do in my business, I'm like ding, 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 because it's like taking a relationship, even if I've never met them, or it takes it this step further, the audible piece of it. And so I want to know too, and I'll ask you this next, what you think about putting your podcast on YouTube, because I
Mm.
think personally, my podcast goes on YouTube. I think if they can listen to what I'm teaching, but they hear it in their ear and also they watch it on YouTube. I just feel like it's from all angles. And those are the people that are going to be going forward with me as
Mhm.
clients. And those are kind of, more the people I can count on long term. Does that make sense? Is that a weird way to think of that?
No, no, not at all.
So some people are really more visually stimulated, some are
Yeah.
more audibly stimulated. And so I just think if I've got people that listen to me teach on YouTube, that's like a triple whammy effect. I don't know. It's probably
Oh,
just shaking crap up, Kylie. Okay, back to your favorites.
okay. I will give you one business one that I am having fun listening to, and it's the Abigail Pugh Show. So she's so cute and she's a mama and she's probably around my age. She's got a little girl, but she sells she does like more low ticket digital offers. But
Okay.
I just love her business. She's really good on Instagram, so I sometimes
Yeah.
need some help in that front. So that's like my one business one that I will kind of pour
Okay.
into. And
Awesome.
then the other two, I have been an almost 30 girl for many years. I love those girls over at almost 30. And again, we're kind of the same
What
age.
is that? Are you just
Oh,
saying, I don't know what that is?
yeah. So it's Lindsay Simsek and Krista something. And they
Okay.
literally just dropped a book, but they started it when they were like heading into, and they were in their Saturn return, which is right before you turn 30.
Okay.
And you're going through all these changes. But they interview, I mean, it's a gamut of things. Like they'll do an holistic skincare in your as you age, or they'll
Okay.
do like gut health or mindset or kind of like spirituality type stuff. So it's
Okay.
really like a holistic lifestyle type.
Okay. Got it.
But great interviews. They're super fun. And then the other one is called Tooth and Claw.
Ooh, I'm writing these down. Okay. Tooth and
Let me
claw.
tell you how I found this one. Okay, so story time. My husband and I are big mountain bikers, and we went on a trip out to the Tetons. This was
Yeah.
before we had our baby girl, so probably 4 years ago or something. And I was alone because his bike broke. And if you go to Jackson, you can get to 11,000 elevation pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
I'm mountain biking
Okay.
uphill, all by myself in bear country. And I come like 30 yards from a grizzly bear.
Okay.
And I'm terrified and I'm
Yourself. Yep.
frozen. It has not seen me.
Yep. Okay.
And so I very quietly, after being frozen for a while, after very quietly turned my bike around, and luckily I'd been climbing. So I jump on my bike. Luckily, I fly down. But in my mind, I'm just thinking, it's
You're being
chasing me.
chased by a
It's
bear. You're being chased by a bear. Yeah. Same.
chomp. It's gonna get me any moment. But luckily it didn't. Luckily I was safe. But that really ignited this like if I'm ever gonna mountain bike in the mountains again, I need to learn more about bears and their habits and how to be safe around them because I don't want to be afraid of
This is
bears.
fascinating.
And so I stumbled upon this show called Tooth and Claw, and it's like two brothers and their friend, and they're telling stories about animal attacks, but from a perspective of they tell the story and then they say this is what went wrong
Oh
and this is
my.
how you
Okay.
can avoid it. So, anyways, it's very interesting. They're very good storytellers, and yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. I love that. And so, that kind of leads me to one of the next things I wanted to talk about, which is, I said people ask me, Jennifer, like, should I have a podcast? And I often think that people think that a lot of listeners are just going to kind of like stumble across their show and
Mhm.
they'll maybe get some new followers out of that and they'll get some listeners and things. But I find that rarely happens, at least for me. Or if it's happening, I'm not hearing about it. More often, it's somebody listens to my podcast and they send an episode to their sister-in-law, and their sister-in-law now listens and subscribes to the podcast. And so, do you think that? I mean, is it possible for people just stumble upon my podcast like yours and like you did with the bear attack one? You know what I'm saying? Like, how often does that logistically for real happen?
As long as we're intentional, it happens.
Okay.
And what I mean by intentional is there's a few ways to curate your podcast to make sure that when somebody searches a word like bear attack, or faith-based business or
Yeah.
female-based faith-based business or something that
Yeah.
you are showing up. And
Okay.
it comes
That's
down
it.
to understanding and knowing what keywords are my ideal listener. What are they
Yeah.
searching? What topics are they going to be searching for? Well, you should probably be having topics on that.
Yeah.
And then there's a few things. One, with your actual name, so the Jennifer Allwood Show, and actually, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I saw Jenna Kutcher just did it. I don't know if word got to her from
Yes.
somebody from me, but you do a colon and then you do a really specific like conversations for faith-based female entrepreneurs. Like that is what you would add to your title. No
Okay.
marketing changes. You just do it in whatever hosting platform. Like that's
Okay.
simple.
We are going to absolutely 100% do that, Kylie. And I will give you all the glory when our downloads like double. That because I have often wondered if it should say something like, discussing faith and business with Jennifer. I don't know. When I named it 7 years ago, I was talking to like some marketing guy that I had hired for some business advice, who was trying to get me actually a television show in New York City. And he's like, you really need to have a podcast. I'm like, I don't know about a podcast. And he's like, you talk well, it'd be great to get more people following you, da da da. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know. And I'm like, but what I even name it? He's like, just name it the Jennifer Allwood Show. So literally his team helped me start it. And we literally named it the Jennifer Allwood Show off a 30-second conversation.
Yeah.
And so I've wondered before what I needed to do. So you're not saying I necessarily have to change it in all the places, but just on like the back end.
Just on whoever your podcast hosting platform is, you just go to episode name and just add it.
Okay.
I'll show you some examples or I'll send them
Yeah.
to your team.
Oh, that would be awesome. Who do you
Yeah.
like for a podcast host, by the way? Because I get that question a lot. We have Libsyn. Who do you
Okay.
pick?
So I have worked with Libsyn for many, many years now, and I'm on Libsyn right now, but I'm actually just about to change to Captivate
Okay.
because they have a better dynamic ad.
Okay.
They allow you to do dynamic ads better and more autonomy with those.
Okay.
Libsyn's a little bit trickier, and so as a solopreneur, I just need that flexibility to promote my products using
Yeah.
dynamic ads and things like that. So,
Let me tell people what a dynamic ad is in case
oh, yes.
somebody that has a podcast, like with Libsyn right now. If I'm getting ready to launch something, like let's say in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be putting out website in a week again, which means if you're a small business owner and you need a website, we're going to teach you how to make it. It'll probably be $17 again, but don't quote me on that. It could be higher or it could be free. Who knows? Who knows what I'm going to feel like? But we're doing that in July. And so if you're like, somebody that listens to my podcast, a lot of times you'll hear me slip an ad in and it'll be on every single episode I have. And I have over 700 episodes. So it'll go on every single episode because what I used to think, Kylie, is that people only listen to new episodes,
Mhm.
but that's not how it works. They listen to maybe my new one and then they'll somehow get on a rabbit trail, just like we do on Facebook or Instagram. They find themselves on some other episode and some other episode. And so people, like half of our downloads every week are from the new one or the new two, and the other half are like from old episodes. So
Oh
the
yeah.
ad will go, it'll be an ad for website in a week on every single podcast that I have. Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah, you hit it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
You're
But
saying
when
Captivate's doing that better than Libsyn.
well, it's just allowing, yeah, it's allowing you to do it a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. The user platform looks better and
Okay.
quicker. So,
Okay.
but Libsyn's been around for a long time, but I don't know that they're keeping up so much. But I want to say one more thing on
Great.
the searchability. So we also need to get away from doing really cutesy episode titles
Okay.
because they don't make sense to our listeners. They don't make sense to people searching. So
Yeah, like, give
be
me, give me an example. What do you mean by a cute
okay.
title?
So how about let's say you're a dog groomer and let's say you have this podcast about different things with
Sure.
dog grooming and you do something like fluffy tails and treats and that's the name of the episodes, but it's really about how to I don't know
How to cut a tail to be
how
shaped
to
or
how
something.
to shape your dog's tail or something
Amen,
like that.
sister. Look at
Oh my
us.
gosh. If there's dog groomers, they're cringing right now. But
They are.
basically you want to be like, instead it needs to be straightforward of how to groom your dog's tail so he does not shed. This isn't perfect, but to avoid shedding or something like that. Because it's like, what are people looking for?
What are
It's
they
like
actually looking for? Yeah.
if I go on Spotify, if I go on Apple, which are their own search platforms, by the way, and I type in dog shedding, dog tail grooming,
Yeah.
that is going to pop up. But if it's like, and if it's something cutesy, it's just not going to land.
Fluffy tails and treats is not going to. Okay, that really makes total
Oh,
sense. And you are just dropping some really incredible
oh, good.
gold nuggets here for people. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I did want to ask you about any growth hacks for people that maybe already have a podcast, or we noticed a decline in listeners. Oh, it was probably a good year ago, where all of a sudden I'm like, wait, where'd everybody go? And so I do think that during COVID, um, our listens and subscribes went way up because people were just home more and they were stuck at home more and they were wanting to learn how to grow a business and they had more capacity and not as many people had podcasts. And so, I think that as we saw that kind of take a different turn in like 2023-ish, we did see also corresponding, our listens go down somewhat. And so if we want to like get that back to where it used to be and beyond, which of course we do, any growth hacks that you would suggest for, I'm asking selfishly for me at this point, but there's other listeners who have podcasts who would want to know this for themselves too.
So actually, you are referring to the iOS update. And so that happened late
Yeah,
2023,
it
and
did.
that slashed people's downloads like in half. And then we,
Okay, and tell everybody remind me of this because now
mhm.
you're saying that I do remember what happened with that iOS update. It
So
made
yeah,
so
go ahead.
notifications didn't come directly out, or what happened?
So prior to 2023, podcasting was a little bit like the Wild Wild West. There was like a downloads where
I liked the Wild Wild West, by the
we
way.
all liked the Wild Wild West of podcasting. Downloads were through the roof.
Yep.
It looked so good. The vanity metrics were there. But then people with spending money on ads for these podcasts were paying way more than was actually translating. And
Okay.
so they took a deeper dive into it and they found like a lot of it was bots and things like that. So they started getting more strict about what downloads actually mean, and we're still not there. Like downloads are still not a great way to judge
Mhm.
the performance and the well-being of your show, to be
Yeah.
honest. But some growth hacks. One is consider your podcast the cornerstone of all that you do with marketing. Like
Okay.
it should be almost top of funnel for bringing people in and getting them on your email list because you want to not only do you want to grow your podcast, you want to create super fans who are always in the know of I have a new episode, by the way, I have a new episode. How do we do that? By getting them into our audience, get them onto our email list. So one way that I love doing this is creating a podcast centric quiz. So not only are we using it to drive people to the podcast? We're
Yeah.
also getting people on our email list, and then we can drive them to a
Yeah.
low ticket offer and we can nurture them that entire journey.
Yeah.
So it's like so much quicker than a quick growth hack. But doing that, and then of course, like a tale as old as time is getting on other people's shows. And there's no need to go and try and get on the biggest shows. Don't try and go and get Diary of a CEO. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to serve you well. His audience isn't going to be receptive. But if you can really connect with people who their audience makes sense for you and maybe they have a smaller audience, but they're full of super fans, that's going to serve you so, so much better.
100%. So you're way too young to remember the song.
Try
I'm
me.
sing it. Do it. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm not even gonna sing it. I'm not gonna say it. However, I always talk about if you can get on OPP, other people's platforms.
Are you kidding me? OPP. Yeah, you know me. I'm not
Yes.
that
Okay.
young.
So I was like, be too young to remember this, and it's not appropriate. But I agree 100% that if you have a podcast, you getting on other people's podcasts because, and the reason that that works for growing your own is because you're getting in front of people who already are podcast listeners.
Yeah.
Majority of the people out there are not podcast listeners because statistically, and you tell me if I'm lying, Kylie, here, but podcast listeners make more than non-podcast listeners. So
Mhm.
for those of you that are listening right now, congratulations. You are some of the smartest people on the planet. But they usually have a higher education level statistically than people who are non-podcast listeners. And
Mhm.
so, if if you can get on somebody else's show, they've already got their built-in followers. And that is how so many people find my show is I've been on somebody else's, somebody like Amy Porterfield's, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So I agree with that growth hack every single day of the week and
Yeah.
absolutely love that. You said something about the number of like subscribes or downloads not being a good indicator of well-being and health. And I really had to come to terms with this
Oh, yeah.
a few years ago because people were asking me, Kylie, to be on their podcast, and I'd have to make a decision. Now, sometimes I can make a gut decision based on, looking at their content, being like, yeah, we're not, we're probably not in tandem here, and this probably isn't a good one for me to go on. But other times, you can't really say like, how many subscribers do you have? Because people can't figure that out, which I've always thought is like a flaw with tracking somehow, like
Mm.
how we could put people on the moon. Wait, we can't do that. And so what I always look at is, okay, how many episodes does the person have? And how many reviews do they have on their podcast? Because if they've only got 3 episodes, it's a hard no for me. Like, I love you, but it's just, you haven't been at it long enough for me to know if you're going to sustain having an episode. And I don't want to do something that's going to be gone next month. Does that make sense? And then the other thing is if they've got, quite a few reviews, then that makes me think, okay, they have quite a few listeners. Am I looking at that wrong or am I looking at that right?
Like in terms of going on somebody
Yeah, or
else's
like
show?
the health of somebody else's show. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I mean, first of all, you are spot on with like the number of episodes. You definitely want to make sure somebody can show that they are showing up for the long haul, being consistent, they're actually putting in the time. The other thing that I actually think can be really interesting is how big is their email list? Because again, like we can ask for downloads, but and then also like is there audience members, are those people who could become your clients, your customers? Are they the ideal people that you want in your world? Because even if they're getting like 5,000 to 10,000 downloads a month total, what if 1,000 of those people were really interested in what you had to say? And they're already super fans of this and they're ready to grab onto what you have to teach, and now they're going to become super fans of yours. So sometimes it can be beneficial to play it that way as well.
Yeah. Okay. What is your thoughts on if somebody maybe had a podcast? This is kind of a hard right on topics, but and
Mhm.
they kind of let it go, but they're listening to us here today and they're like, hey, I actually do really need to grow my email and I believe what this woman is saying. And yes, I need to get back to it. Is it easy to resuscitate, your podcast or because like let me give you an example. I'm planning on taking the month of July off
Yay.
for the first time in 25 years of owning a business. I have never taken more than 2 weeks off. And what's funny is I was talking to a client of mine today and I was telling her I took 2 weeks off of like social media and all my meetings and things back when I was writing my book. And she's
Yeah.
like, but you were still working. So you were just
Yeah.
exchanging like one type of work for another.
Yeah.
This time I'm actually going to try really hard to take July off, which I would not have done had Amy Porterfield not done it and did a podcast about doing it. You probably wrote the podcast notes. I don't know. You
I
did?
did.
Okay. But and so there's this part of me, and so and I'm taking off the month for many reasons. Number one, it's my birthday month, my daughter's birthday
Yay.
month. Our son's getting married in July.
Yeah.
We have an 11-day trip to Florida. It's the 4th of July. It's just like a month full of fun. And so
Yes.
like, what would happen if I just took a month off? But there's this part of me, it's like, but I can't take a month off from podcasting. That'll be terrible. Nobody's going to listen when I come back. So, I mean, talk to me or the girl who's kind of let hers die off. Is it hard to resuscitate? Because like if you take a month off from Instagram or Facebook, you're going to have some resuscitation to do when you come back just to engage your followers. But tell me about podcasting. Is it easier?
So, what I would say is taking a month off is going to be different than resuscitating something that's been kind of off the grid longer.
Okay.
For the woman who's been off the grid longer and is like, I'm ready to get back at it, just get back at it. Like you
Okay.
can, if you want, you can just honestly, even if you want to change your cover or your name, you can just
Yeah.
keep
Good
what you
time
have
to
and
okay.
you can change it.
Yep.
1 month off might be a little jarring for your audience who's been used to
Oh, 2 a week.
you know? So if you can batch and even do one episode a month, or what
I'm
if you
I'm
released two
planning on
episodes?
I'm just batching before I'm off. So the
Yeah,
podcast, I mean, here's the truth, it's gonna go. But there's a part of me that's like, but why can't I take a month off? And my seems like, well, you could, but
you
I
can.
but just if we can batch 8 episodes before you leave, that'll be better. I'm like, fine, okay, all right.
Well, hey, I'm all about testing. What if you just say to
Yeah,
your audience, I'm taking the month off. You take the month off, go enjoy yourself. Let's meet back in August. I will be here. You will be here. I mean, you can always test.
I know, I know. Have you ever known anybody to do that?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, see? Because
Not
really
that
your
I can think of.
podcast listeners are more engaged than your social media followers.
Yeah.
They're I don't know. I mean, so I think, do you think most podcast listeners are on your email list, or do you think, no? Okay, I would
I
agree with you.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't. And what I will say is I do feel like we almost train our super fans into being like, okay, Tuesday and Thursday, Jennifer drops an episode. So I listen to it when I'm going to pick up my kids Wednesday morning. And then I listen to the other one Friday when I'm going for a walk. And
Yeah.
it becomes part of their routine. And so if you do go ahead and give them a heads up, they might just
Yeah.
be fine with it. But no, I don't feel like.
Okay.
No, that's why I do the work I do because I feel like we have to get our listeners onto our email list and we're not quite doing that.
Okay. Okay. And so I know one of your strategies for doing that is the quiz that you like to do. And we have a quiz it's a pop-up on my website. So if you go to like jenniferallwood.com/podcast, it pops up there. And it's basically like a curated list of, depending on where you're at in business,
Yeah.
we'll send you the episodes that are probably most applicable to if you're a beginner or if you're trying to scale or what have you. And so, but like, tell me, like, what are some of your other strategies? Do you suggest that in every episode somebody get on your email list? Like, do you like give a freebie every episode, or how do you suggest people do that?
So there's another really strong strategy that I use, and it's really optimizing your social, your website, and then your podcast through
Okay.
dynamic ads. And what we do is we actually create curated bundles based on lots of things. It can be something like a pain point that your audience member is dealing with, or it can be like, this is my top five podcast episode bundle because you have
Yeah.
700. Like, where the heck am I
Right.
supposed to start? And then we actually use those. We optimize your website so there's pop-ups in intentional places. Like my
Okay.
client, she actually has a podcast in France. She had over 8,000 people sign up off her website traffic for
Oh,
these bundles in
okay.
2.5 weeks.
That's amazing.
I couldn't even believe it. I was like, and she was cracking up. She's like, remember when I told you I don't think I have anyone going to my website? I'm like, no, I knew.
That's amazing. I love that. I love
So
that.
that, and then the other thing is using those same bundles to set up a mini chat funnel that you're promoting on social media because it's a fun thing to promote on social media. On top of that, you can promote it as a dynamic ad when you're not promoting your offers. And
Sure.
you just have a calendar and you're like, okay, this dynamic ad is going live this week that's promoting this podcast bundle because we
Yeah.
know these people already like to listen. So
Yeah.
let's give them a curated list and rotate through these different curated lists. So that's one that works really well. Another thing is when we're talking about other people's podcasts, have either that bundle that we talked about, like promote them and drive them to that specifically, or drive them to so either that bundle or drive them to a landing page that is going to send them to the podcast that's going to
Okay.
give them a curated something. So those are some other ways I like to.
That's really, really good. So, you guys travel full time, is that correct?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, where are you at right now? Just let us
We
live.
are in Minnesota just because we needed to be home by family for.
Oh, you know what? I knew that because you're actually friends with Mackenzie, who works here at Team Allwood, who all of our listeners are going to know.
Yeah.
Mac Daddy's been with me for years. Did you know we call her Mac Daddy, by the way? That's
No, I love that name though.
probably not very professional, but it's Mackenzie Burke, also known as Mac Daddy.
Yeah.
So Mac has worked with me in many different capacities for many, many years. And so I know you guys got to get together the other day.
Yeah.
So how does that work for you, like traveling with a podcast? Do you just record wherever you go? What's that look like?
Yeah, so we have Starlink, which has changed the game. Like we've been doing this for a long time, many winters, and we used to have this like, oh my gosh, I bet it was like a 15-foot pole for
Okay.
that we would like try to get internet with. I mean, like it was so big. And
Picturing like an antenna with tinfoil on it.
and my sweet husband would like go and try and like shift it to make sure I got reception. That was when I was working online for
Yeah.
Amy and Kathy. But now that we have Starlink, it is so good. So I have no issues. And so yeah, this is just my office. I have a nice mic. We have Starlink. No issues.
I love that. And I love that for your family. Do you tend to like batch record all on Mondays, or do you, because different people will ask me sometimes, Kylie, like, how do you do your podcast? I'm like, friends, I'm a hot freaking mess. So, like, right now, I'm doing, yes, the 8 episodes that I'll put out in July. So, I'm batching. So, I will actually record 3 podcasts today. But a
Nice.
lot of times, it's a Sunday night.
at 6 o'clock. And I've got a podcast coming out on Monday morning. And I'm like, whatever hits me right now, I'm going to go talk about. And so, I've recorded in places like a bathroom in a hotel once because I didn't have any other choice. I was out of town for work and I'm like, well, we're just going to make it work. But I was with a friend one time. I was in a mastermind. We were in, okay, let me get all of these cities right. I'm going to mess this up, Kylie, because I can only get about 80% of my life right. So the stats will be wrong. But we were in something island, Catalina Island,
Oh,
Catalina
sure.
Island, Catalina Island.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
so we were taking a helicopter ride
Oh my
to
gosh.
Catalina Island from San Diego, San Francisco. Where were we?
Uh,
What do you
that
call it?
would be San Francisco, right?
No,
No, San Diego? I
San
can't
Diego,
remember.
but we'll just pretend it's a saying something. And so anyway, I'm in there with a friend of mine who owns a like skincare company. She gets out her little podcast mic and does a podcast from the air in the helicopter
Oh,
as we're watching like whales going as we're going to Catalina Island. I'm like, what is this world that we even live in? And she's like, I've just gotten to where I don't care how like
wow.
professional it sounds and I'm not really worried about all the editing like I used to. And that was so freeing for me because I
Yeah.
was like, that's really good. And essentially what she was saying is if you've got really good content, people don't care how it's packaged. Do you agree with that to a degree?
To a degree, I certainly
Okay.
do. I think that if the audio isn't great, it's
Yeah,
hard to listen to, right?
right.
So I definitely think it's worth putting into investing in good equipment or a good editor.
Yes.
But yeah, if the content is good, man, they're gonna share it. But make sure that
Yeah.
you have searchable titles for that great content so we can
Right.
get them to
Yeah.
the episode.
Yeah. And do you like when people put their podcast on YouTube or do you hate that?
Oh, no, I think that's great. I think again, it
Really?
comes down to your audience. And I
Yeah.
put my podcast on YouTube. One thing that I've been hearing and seeing is people, if you want to get them from YouTube to listen to the podcast
Mhm.
on Apple or Spotify
Yeah.
or whatever, shorts have been really successful in doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just depends on the capacity you have.
Yes.
But people do. There are people who really
Yeah.
like watching them
I
on
prefer.
YouTube.
So if
And
I see two people talk, like, so if I see Carl Lentz and Laura Lentz did an episode last week that I really want to listen to. And so, it says on their Instagram, we've got a new whatever out. And
yeah,
so the other day I went to my podcast app and then I'm like, no, I really like to see people. I like to see the interaction. I like to see the conversation. I like to look at facial expressions. And so I went over to YouTube and subscribed to it
I
there.
love
But
that.
I'm glad to know that you like it on YouTube because we
Yeah.
don't get tons and tons of
Mm.
listens on YouTube, but Easton, our son Easton, once getting married, he like does our podcast editing. Do you have an editor or do you edit
I
yourself?
do. No, I do not do that
I was gonna
myself, and I
say,
don't recommend
don't
anyone
edit
does.
yourself, ladies. Don't edit yourself.
Yeah.
So, well, okay, so it's Nell's son that does my editing. I'm so sorry. And then Easton, my son, takes it and puts it on YouTube for us, but he does the shorts. And we've
Yeah.
had a lot of shorts do better than the actual episode. So
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Hmm.
So, all right.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening right now and they're like, okay, you ladies have made me want a podcast. Where should they start, Kylie? What do they
Mhm.
need to do first? How can they connect with you? Is there anything that you have that could help them? I don't even know. This isn't in my notes. Again, I'm just going rogue.
Yeah.
But tell them
Uh,
what to do. Where can they find you?
yeah, so I actually have so even if you're starting a podcast just kind of just starting or if you have one, I would love to send you to I have a free resource that's all
Okay.
about it gives you fill in the blank scripts and all of this
Uh,
stuff for growing your email list and your podcast in tandem. And
okay.
so that's podcastmarketinghub.com/playbook. So
Okay. Say
you
that
could
one more
go,
time.
yep,
Podcast.
podcastmarketinghub.com/playbook.
Perfect.
And so it's a guide to kind of support you in both of those. And even if you're early on, you can still set these up.
Yes.
Like you're going to be ahead of us all because you're setting this up from
Yes.
the get-go. But really what it comes down to is be intentional about the words you're using
Yeah.
because that's going to drive people to the content that's so good. And if you're passionate about it, it's going to be so good. So
Yeah.
make sure we're getting people there and that we're getting them into your world as well, onto your email list.
That's such a great reminder because there's times I feel like I don't want to talk about getting on my email list again because I just want to use it as like my podcast
Yeah.
as a way to really be a blessing and do seed planting. And, a lot of our clients become friends with my
Yeah.
podcast. And so sometimes I forget about just telling them to get on the email list and here's a
Yeah.
freebie for them. I will tell you one thing I have gotten good at this year though, is I've gotten much better at saying, if you enjoyed this podcast, do me a favor and just send it to two people, just two of your friends who you also know are women who love Jesus and business both. Or this morning on the one I recorded, I'm like, even if this podcast episode isn't for you, would you just forward it to somebody that you know is trying to start a business and hasn't been able to yet? Because I think it'll bless them. And so I've gotten better at just making the ask. I don't know if there's any fruit coming from that or not, but at least I feel like I'm doing my due diligence.
Well, one note on that, if you're waiting till the very end, crickets, because majority of people's podcast episodes, no matter how good they are, get about 70%, 60 to 70% consumption rate.
I
So
did
put
not
it in
know
the
that.
intro. Always have a CTA of some sort. Even if it's
Amazing.
go sign up for my newsletter, go share it with two friends, like do it organically in the intro. So
Kylee, you just made this entire podcast like worth it. That is a game changer tip. Thank you. Because I always wait till the very end.
well, we did just drop a nugget at the end, so hopefully people are
I know.
listening all the way.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to do a reel and talk about how listen to the very end because Kylee drops like the biggest nugget right at the end. So that was fabulous. All right. Tell people where they can find you on social media.
Okay, so I am Kylee, Kylej Chandler, and that's my Instagram handle. You can come over, DM me, let me know you heard this show, what biggest nuggets you took away from it, and yeah, I would love to connect.
And I just want to make sure too that I clarify who you mostly like to work with in this season, Kylee, is people who have established podcasts like myself. And because we've been chatting back and forth about working together and helping them to drive more traffic to email lists and get more subscribers at the same time. Is that correct? So yeah. So
and then drive people to your offer. So we tie it all into revenue. I will say that, yes, I do some consulting one-on-one with more established female entrepreneurs who have podcasters, but I'm about to beta launch a course in July that is a little bit more of a group setting, teaching some of those same funnels to set up as well. So if you maybe aren't as established, that might be something good to be in my world for.
Kylee, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you so, so much.
I appreciate you, Jennifer. Thank you.